When I think of bats, I think of words that come to mind are fascinating.
Bats are really diverse.
Push the limit of mammals.
Important ecologically.
Economic benefits.
It can be a little challenging to study.
Misconceptions.
Public misperceptions out there.
Vulnerable.
Need help.
And crucial.
And some of them are pretty cute.
My favorite is the hoary bat because it looks like a little teddy bear. See?
Oh my God.
That is the cutest photo.
That's a cute one, but small-footed bats, you just want to give them little noogies. And then, because they're that adorable, and they're just like the size of your tip of your thumb. And then look at eastern red bats. They look like little gerbils. They're just,
that guy does look like a little gerbil.
They're pretty cute.
The silver hairs, I feel like they have like a 1970s mohawk. Have their hair kind of sticks up in front, like he's from 1970s. He's got this like little poofy hairdo, and you just need like a disco ball. I don't know if I'm really addicted to bats, but I definitely am hooked. I don't think about them all the time, but I do have a lot of dreams about bats and doing some cool research. It's good news that we have a group of bat researchers and scientists and educators all throughout the state.
North Carolina is notable for bats because it has a large number of species, 17 species. And the mission of the group is to promote the conservation of bats through education and collaborative study.
They comprise a quarter of all the mammal species that are out there. So you have over 1,200 species of bats.
And there is a huge range of diversity with bats. There's everything from microbats to megabats.
They're all over the world and at different latitudes, except for Antarctica.
There's a bat in Asia that people just recently learned actually hibernates in the snow. And the only other mammal that does that is the polar bear.
They've tested the flight speeds of bats, and it's been up to 100 miles per hour.
They eat everything from insects to fruit.
Fish-eating and mammal-eating bats.
Bats in the tropics, a lot of them are really important for seed dispersal of fruit. Things like figs and tamarinds and mangoes and avocados. Bats are also very important pollinators. In the western U.S., we've got pollinating bats, and those are very important with agave, where tequila comes from. All the bats in the eastern U.S. are insectivores, and one small bat can eat up to 1,000 mosquito-sized insects in an hour.
Almost their whole weight in insects in a night.
Also very good at pest control for agricultural crops. The annual value of bats to agriculture is $23 billion a year for pest control.
Being a bat researcher is not as fun and exciting and glamorous as some people believe.
But there's a lot of research going on in North Carolina. Some of the different ways that are used to study bats include mist netting, so you capture them in nets when they're flying at night. We were mist netting for bats at a fish hatchery, and there were a whole bunch of aquatic insects hatching out that night. It was just crazy. So many insects and so many bats, and we had like insects would be flying down your shirt and getting in your ears, and you're trying to keep focused on getting bats out of the net as fast as possible because it was just crazy out of control bat action.
We use acoustic surveys that record the acoustic sounds of bats on the echolocation, so we can find out what species they are. We do roost monitoring.
Telemetry is also used. Once you capture bats, You put tiny transmitters on them, and then you can track where they go to see where they're foraging.
Hibernacula surveys, which is we do surveys in caves and mines in the winter where the bats would be hibernating. Sometimes there are very strenuous and dangerous and probably creepy situations that we get into. We fit down these small holes in caves. We don't know what's at the other end, and there's spiders everywhere, and it's very claustrophobic.
So it can be feast or famine when you're out surveying for bats. If you're putting a lot of time in and you only catch a couple of bats, that can be, a little bit of a downer, but at least you didn't get completely skunked. That's the worst feeling of all, is if you go out and try to catch bats and you don't get any.
Oh, look at you. Oh my gosh. Seminole bat. Pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's just a stone. Yeah, they look like
they're
red.
A lot browner than
Oh, I'm just moving my headlamp too much. Do you want my headlamp off?
Oh, awesome. I'm gonna do 3, 2, 1.
Bats are very important to us, but people don't realize what dire straits they're in right now as they face white nose syndrome,
which has killed over 6 million bats so far in North America.
It's specific to cave hibernating bats. And the bats, once they get the fungus on, it grows on their muzzle and on their arms and on their body.
It causes them to wake up when they should be hibernating. They burn through their fat reserves too quickly. They leave caves in the middle of winter to try to go find food or water, and they don't survive. White nose syndrome has led to one of the most dramatic decreases in North American wildlife in history.
White nose syndrome has spread across the United States since it first was detected in 2006. So now it's been detected in 34 states and 7 Canadian provinces. And here in North Carolina, it's assumed found in every county in the mountains. And we keep finding new counties in the Piedmont.
In North Carolina, bats that seem to be the most vulnerable to white nose syndrome are northern long-eared bats, tricolored bats, and little brown bats. They're hardly caught anymore in surveys out in western North Carolina.
White nose syndrome is just basically devastated the population of bats.
They reproduce very slowly. They might only have 1 pup a year. So when they're affected by things in the environment, they can take a really long time to recover.
In my lifetime, we won't see bats recover to the place that they were. And it's sad because I want my children to grow up seeing bats like I see them.
Some people might not be that concerned about what's going on with bats. Some people think they're rodents, which they're not.
That they will suck your blood, and there's all these misconceptions of bats. One of the greatest fears or misconceptions that I hear from people about bats is rabies. These headlines that you see sometimes cause almost even greater fear, but when you look at the facts, only about 6% of bats that are actually tested and submitted and tested for rabies are rabid. So that leaves another 94% that aren't rabid. All that said, you want to take precautions. And if you think you've been in contact with a bat, make sure you get vaccinated. Because once the symptoms start, it's 100% mortality rate. Better safe than sorry.
Bats do turn up in people's houses sometimes, and that can scare some people. It's not a good situation for the homeowner or for the bat. You should never handle a bat barehanded, but you can get bats out of the house safely. Either wear very thick gloves, or you can use a box that you place over the bat and then maybe slide a little piece of cardboard under the box to escort the bat outside. Or you can just open a lot of windows and kind of shoo the bat to fly out when it's ready. Things I like about bats, some of them are just really, really fun-looking little animals. They've got beautiful coats. They're these tiny little animals, and I can handle them because I've had pre-exposure rabies vaccination. But when I'm working one up that I've caught out of a net, they're these tiny little animals that are putting up this big fight and they're just trying to survive.
Dude, stop! Let me go! Dude! 39.
And bats need help.
Okay. Anything else on her? Okay. Goodbye.
So people can help bats. Putting up bat houses
Bat houses of various styles.
is a great way to go, and one bat house can hold several hundred bats even, because they roost really tightly packed together.
Also plant native plants, which provide food for the native insects, which in turn feed the bats.
Avoiding pesticides is a really great thing. Leaving snags in your yard, and not snacks, but snags, can provide really good roosting habitat for some species of bats. You also want to make sure that if you do have bats that have taken up living in your house, that you want to evict them humanely.
Pretty much May through August, we ask people to leave bats alone. That's when the mothers give birth to their pups, and the pups are very vulnerable. There's a couple times when I've actually held a mother, and it still had its baby, its pup attached, and it was just so sweet. You kind of catch some of the other biologists kind of baby talking to bats, which is kind of funny. I try not to do it, but it's kind of hard sometimes not to baby talk.
Well, look at this one. I mean, look, he's got a big old puffy head. He's a Seminole. He's adorable.
That's true.
Evening bats, which have a very funky smell.
Hey, don't diss on my evening bats.
They're